The 24th. Holy cannoli. We're in the final days of May. I cannot even believe it. This is Coffee Talk. It's also what? Isn't it the last day of school? At least it is for my son. We're right there, y'all. Summer, hurricane season, lots of stuff. Good morning. Speaking of hurricane season, today we will have Colorado State University's Phil Klotzbach, Dr. Phil Klotzbach, who pens the Colorado State University long-range forecast. We're going to chat with him, see how he does it, how he got involved there, and ask a little bit about what he does for fun and why Colorado. Because, why not? But first, welcome to Coffee Talk. We do this just about 7 days a week. See what's doing in the world of weather. Let's get started with kind of a lay of the land and see how things are. There's downtown Orlando. It is gorgeous this morning, isn't it? You're looking good, kid. You're looking good. Let me take you up to Marion County, see what's doing in Ocala. Some high, thin clouds. Tavares Lake County, rise and shine, my friends. It is so pretty. I'm a little disappointed. Was hoping to see a seaplane out there. That's okay. I get it. Let's head over to Brevard County, Port Canaveral. Oh, man. Any morning you get to look at cruise ships. And I know that it sounds so silly, but I feel like every time I see that shot, it's like I can smell the salt air. Look at that bottom left corner. You see the pelican there? Like, go get a fish, man. Fly around. And then Volusia County, New Smyrna Beach. Let's check in, see how, oh, man, it's so pretty. Y'all, summer's almost here. Summer's almost here. It's like I can taste it. I love it. All right. First warning, live Doppler radar scanning the skies. Not much to see here. It's a nice, quiet start to the day. Temperatures out the door, nice and warm. 75. Tell me summer's not almost here, right? 75 degrees in Orlando, 73 in New Smyrna Beach. Look at where we're headed today. The next few minutes of Coffee Talk, trigger warning, may get you. All right? It's going to be hot. 95, our 3 p.m. temperature. Here's a look around Central Florida for the day ahead. 95 in Orlando, 96 in Claremont, 93 in the Villages, 93 degrees in DeLand. That is hot. But let's look at the next few days. I'll show you. I'm sorry. Wow. Okay, so it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot. Did I say it's going to be hot? Yeah. Forecast today, obviously hot. Here's a look at the records versus the forecast. Orlando will be close. I do not suspect Sanford will be all that close. I'll be flying a Cessna out there, though, today, so I'm sure. I'm wearing a Columbia shirt because I'm going to need any ventilation I can in that thing. I think that we'll get to a record in Leesburg, Daytona Beach, nah. Melbourne, nah. And then we look to tomorrow. We'll be awful close in Orlando, pretty close in Sanford, awful close in Leesburg, getting closer in Daytona Beach and Melbourne. And then again, it gets even hotter through the weekend. It's a little painful to look at this. All right? I think for tomorrow we'll see a couple of showers, maybe a couple of thunder showers, and then it's just like bonkers hot. Like bonkers hot. Sunday and Monday, pretty darn close to record heat. When we look at Monday, for example, we'll be awful close to a record set back in 1962 in Orlando of 100 degrees. We'll be at 98. It's the forecast. Sanford, 96. Record also in 1962. Leesburg will be close. Daytona Beach will be close. Melbourne will be close. Yeah. Yeah, that's where we're at. All right. So for your Memorial Day plans, bright is that scorching yet? Dude, it's getting close. It's getting close. I saw the forecast and I was like, oh, we did go 98. Okay, got it. So yeah. So the forecast for Monday is just plain hot. It's It's hot. High pressure basically just sitting over top of us, giving us that dry air. But as that moves out, finally, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, looks like we'll be able to turn around the winds just a little bit, pop the heat bubble just a little bit. But listen, the dog days of summer are essentially here. So take a look at the 7-day forecast. All right, a couple of showers and thunder showers for tomorrow. Then that big heat bubble builds, right? So I did a little bit of research, okay? So just looking at the 7-day forecast, 98 degrees for 2 consecutive days. So the first thing I wanted to know is, when was the last time we had 98 degrees for 2 or more consecutive days? And I had forgotten this. Maybe you remembered, but last year, do you remember last year? We had a run in August, 6 consecutive days of temperatures at or above 98 degrees. August the 7th, 98. August the 8th, 99. August the 9th, 99. August the 10th, 98. August 11th, 99. August the 12th, 100 in Orlando. And then it got down to 96. So last year we had 6 consecutive days in August at or above 98 degrees. Prior to that, we had 2 consecutive days in June of 22. Prior to that, we had 3 consecutive days in June of 2011. So we have had runs the last 2 years, but prior to that, it had been like 11 years. One thing that I think is interesting, and I'm just kind of trying to look. The last time we had this kind of heat in May, you have to go back to 1961. That's interesting. I'm going to text Tony right now. Tony. Interesting stat, period. 98 degree high forecast Sunday and Monday, period. 2 consecutive days, period. The last time we had that run in the month of May, you go back to 1962, period. I said 61 earlier, I meant 62. May 27th, 1962. It's enough that I wanted to make sure to mention it to Manalfi. That's a graphic, y'all. So anyway, I thought that's very interesting. I thought that was very interesting. Elliot's asking, are these temps from MCO? Yes. So I'm forecasting for MCO. MCO is the official reporting station for Orlando. Certainly other, like for example, Monday, 98, you see 98 there. That's for Orlando. But if you look at our map showing all of Central Florida, certainly different spots have different temperatures. There's kind of the forecast numbers. We're talking right now about it on Coffee Talk, period. I just wanted to make sure to shoot that to you because that's an interesting graphic idea, period. And since I'm not working today, I'm definitely not making that graphic, LOL. So anyway, yeah, so like there's Monday. That's Memorial Day, right? Even the beaches, though, notice 92 Daytona Beach, 93 degrees in Melbourne. You head inland a couple of miles, 96 in Palm Bay. Woof. So there you go. There you go. What's everybody cooking on the pavement or the dashboard in this heat? Yeah. I saw somebody talking about cooking like meatloaf or lasagna in the mailbox. There you go. Seek and destroy. Good old speech to text. Listen, if I'm sitting here talking to y'all, I'm not going to sit there and type a text message. Speaking of text messages is boring enough, but at least it clues you in. At least you know what I'm saying. Eric, were you even alive in 1962? What year were you born? Yeah, Janice, definitely not alive in 62. I was born in 1984. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. Michael, has the rainy season officially started yet? Nah, it doesn't look like it. It's trying to, but it doesn't look like we've fully come into it yet. Yeah. All right. Tropics, my friends. And this will be a perfect caveat to get into our coffee talk drive-thru. Honestly, just looking at this satellite imagery, trying to form a little surface low. Out there east of us, east of the Bahamas, the Turks and Caicos, and computer models are trying to form an area of low pressure. Over the next couple of days, 10% likelihood of tropical or subtropical formation. Jana says, you're a baby. I've been called worse. I've been called worse. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now. Thankfully, across the rest of the Atlantic basin, does not look like anything else is trying to get going. So that's always good. That's always good. Yeah. All right. So speaking of the tropics, though, we've got a full and fun interview lined up for you. This is Phil Klotzbach, okay? Dr. Phil Klotzbach, far smarter guy than I am. But I had the opportunity yesterday morning to sit down and chat with him. So you're going to see me wearing a different shirt, magic of TV. But had the opportunity to sit down and talk with him a little bit, learn a little bit about him, and I'm excited to share that with you. And then after that, we can chat because Joanne's bringing up the NOAA forecast. So after we talk to Phil on tape, so you can ask your questions. And I did ask some of the questions you sent me, but it's not like I'm going to be able to live ask them. But anyway, we'll chat with him, and then we can talk about the new NOAA forecast. Sound good? Sound good. All right. Dr. Phil Klotzbach joins us. Sir, good morning. Thank you so much. I know it's much earlier your time than it is for us, so I really thank you for waking up with us. We're just a couple of days away from hurricane season, and you've put out your seasonal forecast. So first, just kind of share where you are on the forecast.
Yeah, so we put out our first forecast on the 4th of April. We'll be updating on the 11th of June. So our initial forecast was for a very, very busy Atlantic hurricane season in 2024. A total of 23 named storms. Those are systems named by the National Hurricane Center. So tropical storms and hurricanes. Of those 23, 11 becoming hurricanes. And of those 11, 5 becoming major Category 3, 4, and 5 hurricanes. That compares with the long-term average of about 14 storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 majors. So well above average is our forecast for 2024.
Now, what kind of methodology do you and your team use to put something like this together? It's been forever the gold standard, but how do you start from scratch and work forward?
Yeah, so we've been doing forecasts, seasonal hurricane forecasts at Colorado State all the way since 1984. So this is the start of our 41st year of doing these seasonal hurricane predictions. And so the way that these got started was Dr. Bill Gray, who was my mentor at Colorado State, basically would use historical relationships and look for precursor signals. So basically, what sets of climate conditions historically preceded active seasons, and alternatively, what set preceded inactive seasons. And you can find that there are certain sets of climate conditions that tend to load the dice towards an above or below normal season. Right. One of the biggest original relationships that he discovered that got these forecasts started was that when you have El Nino conditions, which is warmer than normal waters in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean, when you have those conditions, you tend to get fewer hurricanes in the Atlantic. And that was through what's known as changes in vertical wind shear, which is the change in wind speed and direction with height in the atmosphere. Too much shear tears apart hurricanes. In El Nino, you tend to get more shear. In La Nina, which is the opposite of El Nino, so colder water in the eastern and central tropical Pacific tends to make for busier hurricane seasons due to less lower levels of vertical wind shear.
Right. Okay. So you've worked on this process. Your forecast has been out for a little while. So you said that you're going to be coming up to an update. Now, I mean, I'm not going to ask for any specifics or anything, but heading into that update, do you think we're kind of on schedule for your thoughts going into the season?
Yes, unfortunately, yes. The season does still look to be very, very active. So we had El Nino last year, which is warmer water in the central and eastern tropical Pacific. And again, that tends to increase your shear. That El Nino is on its way out, and we're looking likely to transition over to La Nina, which is colder water, again, in the tropical Pacific. And that tends to result in lower shear, which is more conducive for hurricanes, since lower shear basically allows the hurricane to be able to get taller, the pressures to fall, and the winds to accelerate. Also, we have record warm temperatures throughout large portions of the tropical Atlantic right now. And when you have those extremely warm waters, that basically provides more fuel for hurricanes. So we observed those record warm temperatures in early April, and unfortunately, those have persisted and in some places even gotten warmer relative to normal. So yeah, right now all systems do appear to still be go for a very, very busy season in 2024.
Now, you brought up the ocean temperatures, and it's, for lack of a better term, I mean, it's kind of wild what we're observing out there. The main development region has been setting daily records for over a year now, and the MDR water temperatures are kind of equivalent of where they should be approaching the peak of hurricane season. You're far smarter than I am. And I'm not just saying this to blow smoke, obviously. You have a PhD, I certainly do not. But what do you make of that? I mean, is this something that we've never seen anything like this before?
Yeah, I mean, at least in the recent record, we haven't seen something quite like this. And really, kind of what really changed was last February, if we were talking, say, February of 2023,
Right.
when we talked about the main development region, I would have said, the temperatures were basically near average, not really much. It was not particularly notable. And then in March of last year, the subtropical high pressure system, so basically your high pressure in your Azores and your Bermuda, got very, very weak. And so you had a weaker basically gradient or difference in pressure between the subtropics and the tropics.
Right.
And when that occurs, you have weaker winds blow in response across the tropical Atlantic called the trade winds. When those winds are weaker, that means you have less evaporation, less churning up of the ocean surface. And what that results in is basically the waters basically warmed up last year very, very quickly from spring to summer. And so, if we talk about climate change, you can say climate change kind of loads the dice towards these really, extremely warm waters. But when you go from kind of near average to record warm in just a span of a couple of months, that's weather patterns. And so that was really kind of what got us to these extremely warm temperatures.
Right.
And unfortunately, often in the winter, kind of things will reset, but they really didn't. And so unfortunately, I mean, we're still setting a lot of these records. And like you mentioned, a lot of, depending on exactly where you are, we're looking at temperatures kind of more what we would expect to see in August, and even September in a few spots. And we're seeing these in late May. So this is certainly, something very notable and something obviously that's quite concerning, especially with the transition in the tropical Pacific over to La Nina. Last year, when we talked about the hurricane season, it was kind of this clash of the titans between these extremely warm Atlantic temperatures, which should make for a busy season, and a strong El Nino, which should make for a quiet season. And we ended up with an above normal season, but fortunately, most of the storms last year recurved. So from an impacts perspective, not a huge year for the United States. But unfortunately, this year with La Nina, it tends to also favor more activity, especially in the Caribbean. And obviously, if storms are forming in the Caribbean, that obviously pretty much directly means more impacts for people in the Caribbean, but then potentially also increasing the risk for the United States.
All right, so we'll just pause from forecasting, and I've got to ask questions about you because our morning broadcasts on here, we call it Coffee Talk, so we all sit back, sip coffee, and just kind of take it easy and relax. So I won't go too deep, I promise. But people are wondering, how did Colorado State University become, and I'm sure you've heard this before, right? How did Dr. Gray kind of create this tropical machine of forecasting in Colorado? We always joke that it's like they're in the bunker in Colorado, not dealing with the tropics. But what's the real deal?
Yeah, so if Dr. Gray were here, he would say that the storm surge can't get you at 5,000 feet.
Yep.
But, seriously, the way that these forecasts got, or the way that the Colorado State, our department of atmospheric science was started by a guy whose name was Herbert Real. And he was a professor formerly at the University of Chicago, which is still nowhere near where hurricanes are. And so Dr. Gray was finishing off his PhD at the time. And so Herbert Real invited him to come out and help start the department. So the CSU, our department, does a ton of different things, but we've always had one or two faculty members really focusing on hurricanes. And so Dr. Gray's group did a lot of hurricane stuff. And so now the research group that I'm a part of is run by Michael Bell. And we have a group of scientists that are working on various hurricane-related challenges. So seasonal forecast is one of the things that our group focuses on.
Now, you talk about that, and I have to tell you, you're not going to remember this, certainly. But it was like the first year I was on broadcast weather. Dr. Gray was still penning the forecasts, but you were already on, and I had the opportunity to meet the both of you. You were both like celebrities, and for anyone watching, Dr. Klotzbach could not have been a kinder guy. Dr. Gray could not have been a kinder guy, and for being a little weather nerd, I was so grateful for the warmth, kindness, and it continues here as you do just so much for the meteorological community. So I want to thank you for that, because
well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
No, it's a genuinely true thing. All right, so next question comes from James. He wants to know if you have found any kind of a correlation between a busy spring tornado season and kind of a hurricane season. Like, what ingredients do you look for those analogs?
Yeah, so there really isn't too much of a relationship between the tornado season and hurricane activity. So we don't really focus too much on that. Severe convective storm tornadoes have some links to El Nino and La Nina, but they're get a little messier when you get into severe convective storm versus hurricane. Right. So when we're talking about analogs, what we do is we try to go back and look for years in the past that had conditions basically similar to what we currently see, but really what we were expecting for the upcoming hurricane season. So with our April outlook, we found 5 years in the past that had conditions broadly similar. And these were years that were characterized generally by very warm Atlantics, as well as basically transitioning from El Nino to La Nina. And so those 5 analog years, one is way, way back in the history books, but if you believe the records from back then, 1878, 1926, 1998, 2010, and 2020.
Yep.
All 5 of those years had well above average hurricane activity. But I think just the last 2 years kind of highlight, and obviously the $1 million question everyone wants to know is, where are these storms going to go? And unfortunately, we can't say a ton about that, this far in advance. And that kind of highlights 2 of our best analogs are 2020, which was a very Western Atlantic focused year. We had 30 storms and a lot of impacts to the United States, especially in Louisiana. And obviously a ton of impacts in the Caribbean as well. And then we have 2010, which had 12 hurricanes. So a really busy season. An average season only has 7. But none of those hit the United States. So from an impacts perspective, 2010 was quite benign. And obviously, there's just not a ton we can say this far in advance. So our group does these seasonal forecasts, but we also do 2-week forecasts during August through October. Yeah. And with those 2-week forecasts, you can go from kind of saying broadly, the season is going to be above normal or below normal. You can start to get into, okay, the next 2 weeks, here's where storms are more likely to form. There's threats to potentially, the Gulf Coast or the East Coast. And for example, last year, I think it was like August 17th or 18th, we put out a 2-week forecast and we said, broadly the Atlantic looks very busy, a lot of storms forming just east of the islands, but there also appears to be a threat, potentially coming out of the Northwest Caribbean or Southern Gulf of Mexico. We don't know where that's going to go because this is like 10 days before Idalia formed, but there's potentially a threat there. So that's something really to keep an eye on because obviously if something forms there, its potential for having significant impacts are relatively high. So there's basically kind of levels of forecasts that we issue. So with the seasonal forecast, we can only say so much from exactly where the storms are going. But once you get into the 2-week forecast, we can start to highlight those potential threat areas, looking at basically a lot of the model diagnostics, so forecasts from various climate models, as well as just kind of looking at basically the large scale environment. So what the winds and temperatures and pressures look like.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Matt's asking, what sparked your interest in studying tropical weather?
Yeah, so I grew up in Massachusetts. I grew up in Plymouth, so right on the water. And so when I was 5 years old, Hurricane Gloria came through. It was a little bit to our west, but we still had some pretty significant impacts, had power outages. And so that really got me interested in trying to figure out what makes hurricanes tick. And then in 1991, we went through Hurricane Bob, which was a pretty impactful hurricane, went into Rhode Island, but caused quite a bit of tree damage in Massachusetts. So that really kind of got me really intrigued by hurricanes and trying to figure out better, basically why hurricanes form, why they go where they go, and are there ways we can better predict what these storms are going to do on timescales from hours to climate change timescales, so long-term timescales.
How did you end up choosing Colorado State University and working with Dr. Gray then?
Yeah, so I was an undergraduate. I went to school at Bridgewater State College, now University in Massachusetts,
Mhm.
and I studied geography, as did Professor Gray. He also studied geography as an undergrad,
Yeah.
and I did my undergraduate thesis on seasonal hurricane predictions. So I was
Ooh.
really fascinated by
Yeah.
hurricane predictions, and I applied to several schools, and I got a call from Dr. Gray saying, inviting me out to a study at Colorado State,
Yeah.
and I was very excited to study with him, and I love the mountains, and so it was a great fit, and I've been at Colorado State ever since.
Wow, that's quite a story. Now, given your breadth of knowledge in seasonal forecasting and tropical meteorology, do you ever feel like you would move to a coastal community, or do you kind of feel like your bunker 5,000 feet above sea level is a good spot for you?
I really love living in the mountains, and so not necessarily that I mean, not saying no one. Like, I just being in the mountains is where I'm happiest. So
Yeah.
certainly, I don't think I anticipate leaving Colorado anytime soon. And I have to say, certainly forecasting the weather, especially doing seasonal forecasting, it should really keep you humble, because you are going to have some significant forecast busts on occasion in our group. With 41 years of forecast, in general, the forecast shows skill, but there have been notable seasonal forecast busts. Probably the biggest bust that I was leading was in 2013. We forecast 9 hurricanes and we got 2. Now, we don't anticipate that kind of a bust in 2024, just given how robust the signals are. But these seasonal forecasts certainly aren't perfect. So, when it comes to, how people should respond to them, realize these are informational tools, not preparedness tools. And, that you need to be prepared the same for every hurricane season, regardless of seasonal forecasts by our group at Colorado State, by NOAA, or any other group doing these seasonal hurricane predictions.
I would just add, he freely talked about that. Does that not tell you the kind of character that we have sitting here? I mean, like we know the greats, know the not greats, and look, nothing's perfect. So I applaud you so much. What is one thing that you feel like, I don't know, what is your favorite thing in the world? I know that you've hiked the Appalachian Trail, but what is the one thing that you'd love to share, that little piece of you that you'd love to just kind of brag about for a second? And I'll let that be our kind of closing thought.
The thing I love most in the world. Well, probably as you've already told, I absolutely love being in the mountains. My wife and I go hiking, running in the mountains all the time, so that's generally where I'm happiest. The snow, we've got a really good late snow here in Colorado, but looking forward to getting up in the high mountains once the snow melts a little bit more. Exploring what's up there. It's a fantastic place to be.
Love it. Well, thank you so much for taking your time. I know you're going to go for a jog now. Thank you, sir. And I look forward to seeing you at the conferences next year.
Thanks so much, Eric. Take care.
Take care, bud.
Thanks.
All right. Phil Klotzbach, everybody. Such a great guy. Such a great guy. I mean, so he woke up yesterday. We did it. We recorded that yesterday morning at 7:30 Eastern time. It's 6. What is that? 5:30 Colorado time? Like, dude woke up, put a polo on, and smiled. You know what I mean? So thank you very much to Dr. Klotzbach, and all of the tropical climatology that you hear us discuss is from a database that he shares with a smile also. I cannot say enough about the kindness of him, truthfully. I'm just a television weather guy, right? Like, I don't hold a candle to him. But he's so open and honest and great. Janice says he's a lot younger than I thought. Dr. Gray picked him and worked with him, and I would say he's probably just a couple of years older than I am. But very different paths. But he's great to talk to. And, I don't know about you guys and gals, but when I walk up to somebody who I know is so much smarter than I am, I can get a little intimidated. And he's like the least intimidating, just most friendly guy. And I appreciate that, because when I go to these conferences, I'm in a room with a bunch of people that have a bunch of letters after their name that I do not have. So there's that. So anyway, so here's the forecasts for the years ahead. Okay, WESH 2 on the left, Colorado State, Phil Klotzbach's forecast in the middle, and NOAA on the right. NOAA came out with theirs yesterday. Colorado State's is the most aggressive they have ever put out. NOAA's is the most aggressive they have ever put out. Ours is not. Different methodology, and that's super okay. But I think that we can all agree that kind of the patterns are wanting to favor perhaps more landfalls this year. Definitely hot as can be out there. Yeah. Joanne's asking, did he see both your and Jeremy's forecast? You know, one thing, I don't want to talk to him about that because I'm not talking to him about me. I'm talking to him about him. So it's not about me. So no, I don't even bring it up. I do my thing, he does his thing, and I'm talking to him about his thing. So yeah. Mike, that was great. Thanks. Of course, buddy. Yeah, he's a fascinating dude. Sancho, you guys could be related. You look similar. If I could have gotten some of the genetic smartdom that he has, then, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, Frank, my brother, because math. I don't exactly have great math. So, anyway. Katie, have you ever wanted to go back and get a PhD? Zero desire. If I could do less than zero desire, I would do zero desire. That's what I like to learn about in this phase of my life. Yeah. Letters after your name are good, but experience with interest is equally important. Everybody has different paths, and none is better or worse. But I'm just grateful that he doesn't stand on a throne or a soapbox. He's so easy to talk to, and just great guy. So it's good. It's good. I like it. All right. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything? Jan says you're a student of life. That's the way I look at it. We got some heat coming, my friends. Yeah. Whew. Thankfully, no big stuff in the tropics to fire up the next couple of days, though we did not go and look at the models. So let's do that real quick before we wrap up the old coffee talk. So there's that area of low pressure trying to form. Models trying to hint at it. No big concerns there. GFS trying to do something. In the Caribbean. Now, this is the part of the pattern that actually should end up in the Gulf. But I digress. So that's the GFS. Let's just check and see if the Euro's picking up on anything. Yeah, the Euro. We'll do the Euro AIFS, the AI model. Now, notice that the AIFS is trying to do some sort of low pressure kind of closer to Cuba, which actually lines up more with, kind of that long range deal. So interesting. We'll have to look, see how it is. Either way, no big tropical issues today, but it's a good time to remember that the season is literally right around the corner. All right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you all so much for hanging out for Coffee Talk. I'm going to go see Mom, fly, and then because it's last day of school, I'm going to pick up my son early. It's early release. I'm going to go pick him up, and we're going to have a one-on-one date. Whatever he wants to do, as long as it ends up with us in the pool, we'll do it. All right? Be good, y'all. See you guys and gals tomorrow morning. Take care. Bye.